Welcome to the Purpose and Profit Club podcast for nonprofit leaders, mission-driven creatives, and social entrepreneurs. Get ready to stop dreaming and start doing. Here, ideas become action. We prioritize purpose and profit. You ready? Let's go. If you've ever wondered, how do I build a community of supporters online? How do I build trust? How do I find my people, find my advocates, my champions, my colleagues, just friends, internet friends? I want to introduce you to Heather Ramirez. Heather and I have known each other, and she has been my internet friend for several years. We were in a program together back in 2020. Shout out to Mariah Cause. Heather is a YouTuber, and I'm so excited to have you hear from Heather because she, I feel like, is such a resource and such an expert in so many things that I'm not. And yet we have, I'm constantly nodding along to her content. We're constantly DMing each other because she is going through it and challenging herself to put content out there that it's not always easy. And it doesn't always feel like everything's working. And it doesn't always feel like the creative juices are flowing. And recently, she gave us a behind the scenes kind of glimpse of that. And I was like, we have to have you on. You have to come onto the podcast. So back in 2016, let me tell you about Heather. Back in 2016, she actually quit her job to start a business promoting digital literacy. And she documented the whole thing on YouTube. And she says that it was the most terrifying decision of my life, but now I make a living doing what I love. I'm able to help people all around the world. I also met the love of my life through YouTube, who you might know, Tom Buck. She has 3 YouTube channels, and she really aims to empower people to explore their own creative potential with content creation and share their stories with the world. Yes, she is a masterful storyteller. I asked her later on in the interview, do you know how just curious you are and how willing you are to try new things and document them and share them with the world? And that's part of her magic. There's a lot to learn here. This ends up being quite a masterclass in both mindset and also marketing, like video, online, storytelling. So you're in for a treat. And with that, I'll give you Heather Ramirez. Heather, welcome to the podcast. I'm going to dive in with this, which is that I just spent an hour earlier today just going down a rabbit hole of your YouTube channel, and it's so good, which is probably what every creator wants. But I found myself laughing out loud. I was just, you taught me a new Canva trick I didn't know about. So thank you. We were just before I hit record that Canva's ever changing. So you had a new-ish Canva video, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. Oh, yeah. I should add the vignettes. I should blur the background. I should do this. Yeah. One of the things that got me right out of the gate was you left in you in it. So if you were, there was one I was watching where it was a green screen, and you're it was a beautiful thing about how you're, unrolling the green screen. And then a minute later, you're and this is how I really did it. It was you let your personality shine. Yeah. And that's what I loved about it. So those were the moments that I was I dig that so much about you. So
I appreciate that so much because it's very intentional. And I didn't always do it that way, but I'm glad it's resonating. So thanks.
And I think too, it's one of the conversations that's been buzzing around is with AI. We were just saying something about AI. And it's one of the places I always go with my clients is just AI can be helpful, but I want to know you. I want to know what you were doing this morning, who you got off the phone with, get me in the room, set the stage. And I feel that's the one thing that sometimes we over edit videos. So it's just this anonymous thing. And people, I think we want to see and hear the realness in people. And yeah,
definitely. I don't even know where to start with that. Cause there's I can go, that could be the whole podcast. But basically okay, going off of AI, I think AI is fantastic. I think I'm very excited about this tool. However, I would definitely not use it. I'd use it as a starting point.
That's right.
It's a great starting point. For me, I'm a kind of a bad visualizer. So to be able to see options and then iterate from there it's really catapulted my brainstorming. But I think especially in a world with AI, it's even more crucial for you to put your individuality onto it. Because if you assume that everyone else is going to use AI, then, things are going to start to sound very similar. But I think the more that you can stand out.
That is the sound bite. That's it. Like, especially in a world with AI, it's more important for you to put your creativity, like you out there. No one wants an anonymous email blast that sounds like AI wrote it. They want an email blast that sounds like you wrote it, and a video that it's like, I agree. I think in my world, like for marketing or comms or anything like that, it's really helpful to get you out of that mode of staring at it like a blank cursor. Like it's helpful to like start and just give you a framework. But then you're like, like add more, say more, do more, put you in there. Yeah.
And I think the fear with video is that it's like, actually, I'm not really sure what it is, but I feel like this is my 7th year being on YouTube. And in all the time I've done it, I feel like the thing that holds people back is this, obviously we want to look our best, but those aren't the videos that resonate with me. And I think if people, especially with, the short form vertical content, we've seen that it's not necessarily the best that makes the most impact or resonates more. And for some reason, when we're trying to create content and put ourselves out there, that's the part we edit out.
I think it's like that piece of feeling like it's forever, it's on video. Right. And you're also, I do think this what I've experienced this too, is like, if you're on video and you're putting your own ideas out there on video, you're giving people you on a platter and you're like, judge me. That's what it feels like, right? Yeah. Where you're like, and that's where so many people get that paralysis, or they just over edit. Or, I've had clients that will go all the way to the point of like creating and editing, and then just never post it. Right. Of all the sticking points along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I get it. I feel like there's also a lot of expectation in terms of, it took, making videos is hard. And if you're going to go through all that effort of like looking your best, writing out this outline or this script or whatever, editing it, you want there to be some kind of ROI, of course, and I could tell you it's not going to happen in one video. But I think that's why it's like the more seamless that you can integrate video and communicating through video into your daily business operations, I feel like it's not going to be so much of a leap every time you have to go push record.
Yep.
Which is why, like, for example, in my Instagram stories, I was talking about like, I had to take a break with YouTube for a little bit, taking a break off of being on camera and stuff. And then I was trying to get back into it. And I was talking about how like, okay, I've done this 7 years. I've made 1,000 videos, how many live streams, podcasts, et cetera, but I'm still stuck here with the phone. Like, how do I communicate my idea? Like, how do I get this out? And I just decided to record that, like that feeling onto my Instagram stories. And then you saw it. And now we're doing this podcast.
That's right. So it was like so human and so relatable. And I also loved that moment was something that there are so many people who have never produced a single video who would have thought you would have never experienced that 7 years later. Does that make sense? Of like, well, no, she's the pro. Like, she totally knows what she's doing. She gets out of bed in the morning and it just goes perfectly. Like, you know what I mean? Like that really is like, we think that there's some sort of finish line, whatever the goal is, whether it's creating beautiful content or, mastering something, that there's some sort of end game where it just is always easy. And I'm like, I think that's also too, where I just felt like this nodding along of like, sometimes it's not, sometimes there's a wall, sometimes there's a creative, happen.
Yeah, I think for me, what it was like just accepting the fact that there never will be this time where I have it all down. There's definitely times where I feel like, okay, I'm at my best.
Yep.
But more often than not, I'm not operating at 100%, and I still got to get stuff done. And it's just getting used to that feeling. That feeling right there, operating in like, this is the best that I can do. Of course, like figuring out, all right, maybe I got to wait a day or whatever.
What would you call that feeling?
yeah, anxiety.
Yeah. Okay. So like one of the things that I teach a lot of classes on is this idea of like, don't wait for it to like feel like you've got everything ready to go. Just let it be uncomfortable. Like, especially like for fundraisers, like just go, just make the pitch. So yeah, let there just be anxiety. Like, don't wait for the anxiety to go away. Yeah. Like it's always kind of there or sometimes not.
Yeah. And honestly though, I feel like for me, it's a weird thing to talk about here, especially on a podcast that's like about marketing. We're all trying to grow our business. I get it. But like, honestly, showing the anxiety has like worked to my, I don't want to say advantage, because I feel like that's like, you know, the wrong way to put it, but being vulnerable and showing that like showing just the reality of it. It's not even like, oh, I constantly mess up and, you know, that's fine. But just like the reality of this is exactly what it is. I think that makes more of an impression than whatever perfect vision I had in my head, you know, when I woke up that morning and, you know, this is what I want it to look like. And this is what it actually ends up being. A lot of the times I feel like the thing that it ends up being is the thing that ends up being more impactful.
It's reminding me of this post of a community I'm in. And this founder was saying like, they didn't know what to post between now and probably like the 6 weeks between now and when they get their 501c3 status or nonprofit status. Like there's no content to post because they haven't gotten it yet. And I was like, dude, that is the content.
Yeah, that is
like,
it.
that is
that's
it.
The story.
Like, that's the story. Like, that's the part of like, what is that like for you? I mean, I would imagine you feel disappointed. You thought you would get it sooner.
Right.
What's happening behind the scenes? Like, well, walk us through all that. Like, I want to be in the car with you. I want to be part of that. And I could tell there was this block for her of like, no, like what the announcement post, we've got it. That's the post I want. And I'm like, well, we'll get there too. But how do you build community between now and then? You let people in, right? You show them.
Of course. Because that's the buy-in, right? And so like before I quit my marketing career, which was actually in nonprofit too.
Amazing.
Out of college.
Welcome back.
Yeah. Me and a couple of college friends started a nonprofit, and I totally remember that whole like 501c3 headache process and waiting for it and stuff like that. That, I don't know, that was like 2011 maybe. So the world was totally different. But when I started my YouTube channel in 2016, I started it with the intention of documenting my journey and starting a business. That's it. There was no like, oh, I hope I grow my business. I hope this is like a marketing thing. I hope like I get a bunch of followers or anything. Like literally, it was just, I remember what it was like to start something. That was an incredible experience. I want to be able to look back to see what becomes of this insane decision that I'm making. And so I'm just going to make videos talking about that. And that's it. Like that's where it led me, or that's all I had, like, you know, the expectations of it. And then talking about, okay, how do I come up with a business name? How do I, you know, I remember filing like for my business. I was at the courthouse at the same like place where people get their marriage licenses. And I was like, look how happy they are. Like I feel that same happiness, but I'm totally alone because my parents don't approve of what I'm doing. My friends haven't, you know, they're all at work. They're all
they don't
at their jobs.
They don't get
careers.
it.
Yep. And so like, it was all those moments that like, I feel proud. I want to keep this for me. And I had no idea that people all around the world were going to resonate with that. We're going to see something of themselves in that. We're going to feel like they were living vicariously through me in some way. Like that was not my intention, but that's what happened. And if I had gone into it thinking like, okay, you know, this is my value proposition. This is how I'm going to position myself as a business owner and my business and all of this stuff. The strategy would have been totally different. Well, first of all, there would have been a strategy. You know, I didn't have a strategy before. It was just kind of like I was going and sharing that story of like me figuring it out, me going through all these hard lessons. Like a lot of my early vlogs were me just crying because every time I would get on the phone with my parents, they were like, so you're going to apply for a job yet? Like, are you what is this YouTube thing that you're doing?
Uh-huh.
Like content creation. You can't, that can't be a real thing. And just figuring that all out ended up being the thing that built my brand.
I love this so much. This is like following your gut, that this is something you wanted to do and not having a plan in place. Like I stopped making marketing plans years ago because I was like, we don't need another marketing plan. You need to go. Like, you need to go do the thing you want to do. And
yeah.
I love that so much.
I'm trying to find a comment of I don't think I'm going to find it. So like, just another example of this is I got a comment. I still get this comment like once a year, but someone left me a comment that was something like, "Oh, Heather, like I see where you're going and like I'm excited for your progress, but now what you have to do is like get rid of your purple hair and your baseball cap, backwards baseball cap, so that people can take you seriously. And no one with a budget is ever going to work with someone who like dresses like you and acts like you or whatever. Like you need to, and like." Okay, when I tell you that comment, you cover your face, and
I have so many thoughts about it. Yeah,
right. And the comment is directed at me, who's still figuring this out. Of course, like my gut instinct is to feel like I'm doing something wrong.
100%.
To feel like, okay, here's this person who like can eloquently describe, and I can tell it's coming from a place of good intentions. Like,
this is what a serious business does.
Yes. And like, I want to say that same year, one of my like favorite clients, we worked together for years. We did like so many awesome projects together, specifically hired me because of my purple hair. Actually, one of the brands that I work with right now, Mighty Networks. They're like a community platform.
Damn, you work with Mighty Networks.
Yeah, go check out their channel, youtube.com/Mighty Networks. You will see me because they, just everything from the personality to just the way that I explain things to, obviously the branding colors and stuff like that. Yeah. It was just a good mesh. So there have been, I can give you so many examples. Heck, I met my husband on YouTube.
Yeah. Like he found my so YouTube frustrating. Videos. It's where it's like, but I think we're socialized, especially as women, is like, I did that too. So when I owned my marketing and PR agency, it was like, I'm supposed to go get like a black pencil skirt now and pumps, I guess. And I also had pink hair for most of my 20s and worked at a rock venue. So it was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Then it just goes to show that, especially in this world, like whoever is going to tell you like this is the way to do it, there's always going to be someone who's doing it the total opposite and also seeing success. So like that's the
so
hard
it's like
part.
Who do you want to be your people? Like
right.
Yeah.
The hard part is that there is no template. The hard part is that there is no formula. The hard part is that there is no instruction manual. Because heck, I mean, sure, I'll pay $1,000 for the template and then I'll just have to do it. I don't have to like think of ideas. I don't have to be creative. It would be so much easier. That would be awesome. Yeah. But no. And like the hard part is figuring out like, what is your voice? What is your brand's voice? Like what is your unique story as a business, as a nonprofit, as a consultant, as a like whatever value that you're trying to give to the world. And I think that's like, one of the things that resonates with me about you is, how do you say it, is like the passion driven, right?
Yeah. Mission driven. Yeah.
So like right there, I feel like that's the story. Like there inherently is a story in any.
I feel like we have to like
trying to say
undo it. So like you're right on track. So I just got through this like 5-week live cohort. I was teaching this email program basically of how to write better emails faster. And the cohort, I feel like all of like week 1, 2, and really the whole time, I'm just trying to undo everything they've been doing, which is like using the same industry speak, like make an impact over and over and over again. And undoing this like anonymous or organization or anonymous leader. And it's like, no, like we want to know the lead. We want to know the founder. We want to know the leader. We want to know all of it. Like, and really getting them to inject not just the celebrations, because they don't always reach their goals, or not just like the triumphs and all of that. And how did you how did you figure out like your brand and your voice and your story? And because you do, I mean, I feel like the moment, I mean, you know this, the moment you popped on our screen when we were in the accelerator together, I mean, I think everybody spent like 10 minutes being like, oh my God, what camera is that? What are you, like your backdrop, your light, like it's, if I see the shade of purple, I'm like, it's Heather. Like out in the wild, do you know what I mean? Like, so not just like your colors, but also just like, how did you hone in your brand, your soul, your identity? How did you do that?
It's so, I wish the answer was like straightforward, but really I think what it comes down to is confidence, because it is hard to, you know, not only find your voice and be confident in your individuality, but then also to not feel like you're doing something wrong when everyone else is doing it a certain way. Like that was the hardest part. My husband and I talk about that. We talk about that all the time. He's also a full-time YouTube creator with a much larger audience than me, and a lot more, there's a lot more established like content creators in his space. He's in the camera, audio, video space. And so, I mean, you could look to the left, to the right. There's a bunch of other people who are on the same level doing, you know, similar content. And so when everyone else is doing, you know, talking about this thing that's relevant in the news right now, or this trend or something like that, you feel like there's something wrong because you're not also contributing to that. But we constantly remind each other that there have been so many people who have said like, oh, I'm glad that you're not just like jumping on that train that everyone's talking about, or you're not making a video about this new thing until you've used it for 6 months to a year, because I want to know like your actual perspective. So like in terms of how I found my, you know, way of doing it, is just like, you know, it's like, how else would you find out who you are and being confident in that? And that's the tricky part with content creation, is that like, it is so woven with marketing, but to me, what it comes down to is that it's an art first, right? Like we could put the science behind it for sure. And all, you know, the beauty about all these platforms is we get all this data, but you have to be able to, okay, here's an example. So I have 3 YouTube channels. One of them is the channel where I do tutorials about content creation. There's my vlog channel. And on that channel, I recently uploaded a video that was just a vlog. It was just like, hey, here's what I've been up to. Here's you know, what's going on and blah, blah, blah. Well, when I uploaded that vlog, I immediately lost like 7 subscribers. And the video before that, I lost another 5. And so now there's 2 videos where I have like negative subscribers. And YouTube is telling me red arrows, you're losing subscribers. Like this video isn't, you know, hitting as much with your audience compared to previous videos. Like all the data is telling you that it's wrong. I know that if those people don't like it, then bye. You're not going to like the next video. You're not going to like anything I do anyway. And like, there isn't this like huge debate when someone unsubscribes and subscribes. Like to me, it's like I unfollow as quickly as I follow. I'm not sitting there like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, sometimes I do, like I'm gonna unfollow this person. I think about it, but a lot of the times I'm just like, this isn't, it's not why I subscribed anymore. Like in the beginning, right? So I'm just gonna unsubscribe and move on. And it isn't this like declaration. It's just like I've moved on, right? And so being sure of like, I know the bigger picture. I know what I'm trying to do. And I can see that on those 2 videos that YouTube is telling me are losses, the engagement, the comments, the conversations that have now sparked, even the actions, right? There were so many people under both of those videos that told me like, oh, you make me want to try this, or like, now I want to go make a video, and now I want to go do this. And like, those people wouldn't have done anything if not for this video. You know,
this is gold, because it's like, this is the point where I really get annoyed with data sometimes, because I do think that there is data and there's also just your own, you might call it your intuition, your own gut. And just like you seeing where you're like, I fucking know. And also just being able to know that, you know, my audience is here, and the folks that want to unsubscribe, it's totally fine, but it's fine. And it doesn't mean that like, I have to change my entire content strategy.
All is lost now. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, So that's the hard part is like,
it is hard because you do have to kind of stay in, I don't know, like you got to have your own back, right? To not flip out. Cause that's hard when, even if YouTube is like X, it's like a teacher, you messed up, you know, and you're like, no, what?
So here's like an extreme example of this.
Okay.
One of the vlogs I did, because I was documenting my journey in building a business, starting and building a business. I used to do a lot of interviews of other people who were doing something similar, right? Whether it was starting a YouTube channel or you're an entrepreneur or some, you know, whatever business owner, you have some kind of endeavor and you're building it from scratch. I used to see this esthetician back in Long Beach where I lived, and she did sugaring. So it's kind of like waxing, but it's like a different thing, right? So I went there with the intention of having a chat with her because she had just left like a chain waxing place to start her own thing. She's a mom of like 4 kids. You know, she's doing it from scratch. She has no help. Like she's, you know, I just admired that so much. And every time I would see her like on a monthly basis to go get sugared, like I would hear the updates and I'm just like, oh, this is a vlog. Like I wish she would start a YouTube channel, but of course she's, you know, not everyone's going to do it. I get it. But I was like, could you please, like, can I please like share your story on my YouTube channel? Because a lot of people would think that this is awesome. Like they need to see someone who isn't me, who like for me, you might have watched me so many times and it looks easy, but here's someone who's doing it from scratch, who's like in, you know, early 40s, still doing it anyway. That video started bringing in a lot of people who, it was a weird part of YouTube, who wanted to see like Brazilian waxes. Very strange part of like, we're getting into this weird part, the
underbelly.
Yes. And completely not like when I first put out that video. So like the existing subscribers loved it. They loved Stacy. They loved hearing her story. And there were so many people who, you know, who were inspired by that. And the longer that video just kind of sat on YouTube, it started picking up these just like random, just like people that I know. You're not here for the right thing. Now, because it started to pick up, there's this instinct of like, oh, it's bringing in so many views, you know, like it's crossing 50,000, it's crossing 60,000, it's crossing 100,000. Like now my total views on my channel is about to hit 1 million because of this video, but none of these people are here for.
Oh, that's so interesting.
They're not here for the right thing. And so like all the data is green. Like, oh my gosh, this is the video, like make more videos like this. That's what YouTube's telling me. And like, I know, okay, as I'm having this conversation with you, everyone would tell me like, this is bad. Like this is not a good video, of course. Yeah. But when it's you and you see a video pop off, like that's that uncomfortable feeling of like, you have to be in charge regardless of what the data is telling you or the vanity metrics that feel like they feel so good.
They feel so important. Yeah.
They feel so important. And especially when you start to get to, you know, big numbers, like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, like, oh man, hell yeah. I enlisted that video. I felt bad. I didn't want to, I never delete one of my videos because I consider each of them my babies, but I totally took it off YouTube. You can't find that video because I cannot have, that's why like when I get people who unsubscribe, I just figure like, oh, it's probably one of those people.
Yeah. They're not my people. Yeah.
Yep. Bye.
And so I'm so glad you told that story because the equivalent of it that's really rampant in the nonprofit world is sometimes I call it ethical storytelling, but that's hard because ethical is kind of everybody's ethics are different, but basically stereotypical imagery. So we know if we like were to A/B test 2 different fundraisers, like online fundraisers, and image A had some really stereotypical imagery on it of maybe a starving child, like the stuff we grew up getting mailers with, right?
Yeah.
And the really kind of like poverty porn is sometimes how it's called, and like the headline that's just not the right use of words and not really ethical, right? Versus B tested on something that's like maybe the parent of the child actually gave consent for the photo and is actually in the photo, right? Things, those types of things. We probably know, or we do know, that the A would actually perform better. So this is kind of that vanity metric. And this is also that metric too, where I think a lot of old school boards get really stuck, where it's like, we cannot move over to B because A is quote unquote working, but you have to like zoom out and go, is A what you want? Is A perpetuating all this? And it's like, you have to really zoom out and go, like, I like to really go to bat for B, and B doesn't have to be boring. B can be compelling. B can be really innovative. B can tell a beautiful story and still not be any of A, right? And still not have any of this. Yeah.
So like what I have found is that B is actually easier because you already have B probably.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
But it's like,
but what is it that like B isn't as showy at first glance? Like, I think people are like, oh, but we need A because A is really going to pop, we really have the image and the headline and the subheadline. It's really 1-2 punch, but you're right.
Yeah. I think it's like, it's that craving of like, I want the thing that works, I want the proven template, which I told, obviously, like who wouldn't want that? Yeah. But I think like that's it's the easy part once you figure it out, and figuring it out is the hard part, right? Like, what's your B? Yeah. And I get, especially in a business, in a nonprofit where you have limited resources, limited time, you don't have to, like, sure, for me, I'm a full-time content creator. I can spend, like, it is my job to sit here and be creative. Yeah. Not a lot of people have that luxury. I get it. So it is hard, it is hard for someone like, okay, yeah, you take a day and try to make a video in your office, like find the story. That's the challenge, right? And then do that over and over again. That's hard, especially if it just feels like such a waste, whereas if you spend time working on A, right? Like you said, like you can guarantee some ROI there. You can put the same amount of time and get some ROI. Whereas like for B, if you're going through all that, like brainstorming, being creative, like there is no ROI. But what I have found in my experience is that the A has a lot of short term. The B has a lot, especially if you're on YouTube. Oh my gosh, the B will live on YouTube and work for you for as long as you keep the videos up. Like, the
word retention keeps coming up, like, as you're speaking, like B is cultivating that like trust with your audience, and there's a retention there. And I do think that you said it may seem a little bit harder, but anything that's hard in the beginning, it does get easier. Yeah. And earlier on, you said, when I was like, well, how did you hone in and figure out like your own brand and your voice and things like that? And you said, I wish there was a template for it, but there's not. And I was like, I'm glad there's not a template for it, because I do think the answer is just doing it is how you do it. When I closed my marketing agency and made the shift to be a course creator and coach, there was it was almost a year where I was like, what do I say in the internet? Like, what do I say? Because I was like, I'm not really doing this at all anymore. I'm not really working with restaurants, and I'm not really working with commercial. It just felt like this weird identity crisis. And I don't totally know what I am yet either. And the only way I got through that was just by putting content out and then stair stepping my way there. And then at one point, I remember years later, I was like, oh yeah, I don't have that problem anymore. Like, I know what I sound like now, but it was only because it was like this weird kind of journey to get there. Right. And
see, that's the thing with like, because content creation, I feel like is an art, but also a skill. Like, yes, the act of doing is still building that skill. Yeah. Right. So like, even if you aren't getting an ROI necessarily from your first, 10 videos, you're still going to be more proficient when you go to make your 11th video, so like sometimes a lot of that, like, I know it can be hard. It is hard to edit a video, but that it will also get easier, right? Like you will become more proficient. The editing, like, you'll just know, you don't have to like, it's like typing, like you don't have to look down at the keyboard anymore. You'll get past that. And then it's just fun, right? Now it's like, okay,
so what I'm curious, give us like a couple of maybe favorite tips or quick tips, because clearly you're a masterful editor. That's hard to say, in the sense of like, if you have a lot of content, for me, it's like, you got to put, what is it, in the first 30 seconds, first 7 seconds, something hook right in to get people to watch the rest of the video. Right. So do you have any suggestions or tips of when we were talking about storytelling and telling a good story, of like, sometimes I see for organizations or founders, it's like the ramp up, it was too long to get to the juicy part that was over here. So how do you recommend telling a good story in a way that actually gets people hooked in?
Yeah. So first it depends. What I would say, especially if you are a business owner or a nonprofit, or, you know, if you're trying to, at the end of the day, get some buy-in or sell something or something like that, I would kind of categorize your content into 2 buckets. So one is where you're doing some kind of like teaching or explaining, or like the person who is watching this is meant to get something out of that video. And then the other bucket is like, I'm sharing my story. Right.
Yep.
So if you are doing some kind of tutorial, teaching, educating, whatever, that I would lead with like a snapshot of the finish, right? So like, okay, we could talk about that video that you found on my channel, or it's like, here's how you can make better YouTube thumbnails with Canva.
Yeah.
Well, okay, like, I'm going to show you some of the before and afters of like, here's what my YouTube thumbnails used to look like, but now that I use Canva, here's what they look like now. And so the person who's watching it can immediately decide like, oh, that, like, what an improvement, or what progress, or like, I want to know how she did that. So, you know, it's like any other story, right? Like, where are we trying to go?
Where's the destination?
Yeah.
Give me like just the tiniest peak of the destination. And that's a good tip. Love that.
And then like from there, cool. Like, you got your steps 1, 2, 3, or whatever it is. Yeah. And then what I would do there is like, try to make it your own, like tell it in a way that only you can. And I can't tell you what that is, right? Like, that's for you to find out. But, you know, that example with the green screen, like, I could have told you, like, here's a green screen. It's like $100. Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. Right. But like, I don't know. I just felt like doing it differently. Right. So I had my husband who's like super into cameras. He got like his fanciest, like, fancy schmancy lenses and cameras and slow-mo B-roll, and like we put some epic dubstep to it. Yeah. Just like, I think any person who's thinking about the formula, get to the point, like, you know, would think that is a waste of time. But I feel like also it's intentional, because if that
hooked me in, and I laughed. Like, I was like, ha, like I was like, oh, I love this. Like, yeah.
If you get that, then you will like my style of teaching. Like, that's the differentiator between someone else who's talking about a green screen, right? Is like that personality. So that's, you know, that's the fun part, but the hard part. And then when it comes to your story, the day-to-day, the behind the scenes, the, you know, the story, there's always, I think with business owners and nonprofits, the beauty is that you could always be better. Like, we're always trying to get further along. And so like, just talking about like, we have this fundraiser coming up. Here's the expectations. What is the reality? That story is just inherently interesting. Yep. All you have to do is tell it. And if you are so focused on the finish line, like, yes, how much money you raised at the fundraiser is super exciting. Like that is going to be exciting, but also like, you're already there. Like, you completely missed the starting line, the running, the stumble, how you got back up. Like, you know, like, someone veered you off the path, but here's someone else who got introduced, and now you're doing this other thing. Like, that is so interesting. And it really is just about, a lot of the times, what I've found, capturing the story as it unfolds. So like, you know, even with vlog styles where it's like, you know, documenting your day, a lot of the time, probably my favorite type of content to watch is where it's Yeah. Like, I don't know
I'm
what the
training
story
with you.
is.
Like if
Right.
you're running I'm like, it's day 5 and I'm cheering you on
Yep.
on my phone. I haven't left the couch and I'm like, you're doing it.
Right. It's like a lot of the times the person doesn't even necessarily know what it's going to look like as they're recording.
Yeah.
I have found, but you kind of just, you record it all. And then when you're editing, you can find the story in the edit, right? Like you can take the parts that are most interesting. So like my challenge is if you're a business owner or a nonprofit and you've never made these types of videos before, or if, you know, you're like, okay, cool. I get it. I need to, you know, share my story and, you know, do it my way and showcase my individuality. What is step 1? How the heck do I do that? I would start with like documenting some kind of story or journey, right? Like, so if it's something like, keep it simple, right? Like something as like, here's one thing that I need to get done today. And then just like talk about that. That's it.
And you're not allowed to say no, there's nothing good there and I'm not going to document it. It's boring. No, you just document it.
Yeah. Because like, like I could say that. Everyone can say that it's boring. It has nothing to do with whether you think it's boring or not. But like, I can guarantee you that like, I love seeing just the behind the scenes. So even if it's like totally normal to you, you know, like a surgeon goes into surgery every single day. It's day to day for them. But if you had like the behind the scenes of that, it's interesting for everyone else, right? So like even if it's even if it is just like talking about it as it is, exactly how it is.
Yes.
Like I know it's boring, but that's the challenge, right? Is for you to just push past that and try to make a story. Like, let's just see where we go and do that 5 times in a week, right? Like, I think there has to be some kind of, well, okay. So I like to recommend this thing called the 10-day tackle, which is make a video every day for 10 days straight.
Love it.
And it sounds like a nightmare because it's like, first of all, I can't even make 1 video. Now you want me to make 10. And not only 10, but I have to make 1 a day. The reason why I think that's like such a good challenge is because 10 days is long enough to hurt, but short enough to feel accomplishable.
Yeah.
And when you force yourself to make a video every day, like that's when it's like, okay, you can come up with your best ideas for the first 3 days, but come day 4, you're like, that's it. I got to go to the gym. I've got kids. I have like, how the heck am I going to make a video today? But you will, it's in the like drought of ideas where you don't know that your best idea might come out of there.
See, here's this. I'm like, yes, you're so right. Once I think the version for me is while I do some video content, it's not, I would say like the top of my business, but email really has storytelling through email has really changed. And when I started to just talk about like, my son, when he lost his first tooth, like we totally fucked up and I didn't know he had it under his pillow. We vacuumed it up.
Oh no.
Like it was, and I was just like, oh my God, like we just bombed it. Like we just totally bombed it. And like how I'm bridging that story into telling it to my audience and then ultimately like whatever else I was, you know, working on, like that gave me so much freedom that I didn't have when I wasn't letting people into my life or like, you know, how I bought an Instant Pot and then just never used it. I just bought an Instant Pot to place onto my counter and never use. Like that made it into another email. And I think it's the same thing because it's like, we can do this through video too. It's just like, choose your medium too. And just like, let it humanizes all of us. And then those are the ones that I get the responses to because people are like, listen, girl, I got a crock pot I never use. I'm like, I know. Yes.
That's the conversation starter. That's the thing that like, I feel like just connects us as human beings. Yeah. But it's not like, you know, it's not A, right? It's not the thing that we have seen. But also like, what's funny is that those things that we have seen work are probably from a lot of people that are doing things on a completely different level. Like I would never do my channel the same way you know, a YouTuber with 10 million subscribers is doing it. We're doing things differently, you know? So like, yeah, it works for them. But now you got to find your thing.
I love that. So one of the things that you talked about a few minutes ago was like you're saying the word fun, and I have it in my notes because you are someone who I just think, I don't know if this is natural or something that you and Tom like cultivate together, but like you have a lot of fun. Like sometimes I'm watching you and you're like, I'm just going to learn how to jump rope and this crazy jump rope challenge. And then the next time you're like, we're doing hockey. And then the next thing, like, I feel like fun mixed with curiosity that I feel like a lot of adults don't have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I
Totally
push myself, like I've got 2 little kids. I push myself to where like my fun is always art. So I'm like, I'm in a ceramics class, but like that actually takes effort for me to be like, we're signing up for the class. I'm going to the class.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I get there. I'm so glad I did. But I feel like you cultivate like a lot of fun and curiosity and like even trying new things. Tell me about that. And is that just like how you always are, or is that like on purpose?
No, that's just how I am.
I love it.
I I think my husband and I, we both are, when we want to try something, we really want to try it. Like now we can get all the hockey gear and like, like we get into things very easily, I guess. Like when we're into it, we're like super into it. And I think the cool part about social media and these platforms now is like, I want to say that is always how we have been, but we have not seen it pre-social media, And so now it's like we can get a glance of a 50-year-old trying a new hobby. I mean, I just subscribed to this lady on Instagram, 60 and me, and she's like a master jump roper, and she started in her 60s. And I was like, this is awesome. Like I want to be like constantly trying.
I love that too. And I feel like that's the part. I know it's really easy for people to be like, social media is the worst. It brings out the worst. And then I same thing. Like, so I've been weightlifting, and it's so nice to see people who are like me, or a little more aspirational, or people who are in their 60s. I'm like, look how strong she is. And it's like, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I will always be an advocate for social media and digital media and all. And like, I totally understand all the, negative aspects of it, but also like I really think that like as a society, like we're way more creative, just diversity, just seeing people, like just the inspiration. Of course, you use it responsibly, but
and it's brought you community. Like we haven't really touched on that too much. Like you've met a lot of, I mean, I call them, I'm always like, oh, this is my internet friend. Like, I'm like, well, no, we've never met in real life, but like, it has brought me so many internet friends. Like,
well, most of my friends I've never met in real life.
Isn't that so cool?
And that's the thing. I think like both me and my husband can say this. I think like just the world we grew up in we just didn't fit in, like we grew up a lot of the times feeling wrong or different or just weird or whatever. And like what's cool with the internet is that you can really connect with people who are like-minded, and you are not restricted by physical boundaries, which is awesome because there's literally someone in Iceland that would totally jive with you. But there's just no way you're ever gonna cross paths. And I think, I'm obviously so partial to this because I met my husband through YouTube, but like there's just no way we would have met if not for the internet. And like now, I mean, it's crazy to think that if I had not started my YouTube channel, I would have never met him, and we wouldn't have the life that we had. And like same with our community, it's so global. Like it's so, there's just people from all countries that I would never have crossed paths with them, but there are people all ages, backgrounds, like from all different countries that will resonate with your message. And I think that's kind of like, the tricky part, that like when I moved here in with my husband, I went to a lot of networking, like local networking, local business stuff. And a lot of them were like, yeah, I want to do YouTube because I want to like promote my business and stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's great. But also if like you're only doing local networking, YouTube is pointless because like you're going to get a lot of people from, the other side of the world that are never going to, shop local. Right. But yeah. So anyway, like point is, I think that if you are willing to be creative, have no expectations, and kind of just figure it out as you go and see what it ends up looking like for you, and zoom out, right? Like focus on things that are like, you can put all this work into one post, one video, one email, whatever it is, and then you just sit there and you're like, how did it do?
Oh God.
Yeah, but like zoom out and do a 1 month or a 3 month thing, and then evaluate from there.
I say 3 months. I'm like, minimum. You got to go for 3 months. Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
I think the 3 month is the way to go.
I love the 10-day challenge though. That's a really great idea. So, as we wrap up, what is one thought that you like to think on purpose? Because I feel like as entrepreneurs, as founders, we have a lot of thoughts, some helpful ones, some not so helpful ones. So what's one that's helpful for you?
So I actually have it right here on a piece of paper. You probably can't see it, but it says just create more. That's also my brand, Heather Just Create. And I actually wrote this on a piece of paper. I don't know, I was probably 6 months into my YouTube channel. So 2016, still just like not feeling like anything was working, but my gut was telling me that I was on the right track, even though I just felt like a failure. And so I wrote down on a construction paper, like, just create more, stop overthinking, stop analyzing, like stop wallowing in this, like this anxiety of like, well, I guess I should just stop. Right. And then like, it didn't help. Every time I call my mom, she's like, what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? And I was just like, Mom, what if it does? Like, what if it does?
That's like, oh my gosh, I just recorded this past episode is about low value questions and high value questions. Low value question is what if it doesn't work? High value question is what if it does?
Yeah.
What if it does?
What if it does? Yes. Like, what a crazy thing, And so that's like, I intentionally made my brand Heather Just Create, so that every time someone talks to me, it's like, it's just reiterating like Heather Just Create. Yes. Heather Just Create, just keep going, just like keep creating, stop overanalyzing. Because like going back to our conversation at the very beginning, there will never be a day where I don't feel like I'm doing something wrong. Or it feels like I don't question it. Like there's always going to be a time where I'm like, I don't know if this is good enough. I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm always going to feel that way, but just keep going. Do it in spite of that,
I think my flavor of it is it's working. I tell myself all the time, it's working.
I love that.
Cause it's like, is it working? It's working. Like, it's like the other side of that. Right. So I'm like, it's working. Well, tell everyone where they can hang out with you. Give us all of the handles.
Yeah. So if you want to see my tips about content creation, I'm at youtube.com/Heather Ramirez. And then if you want to see my vlog channel where I've documented my journey, it's at youtube.com/Heather Just Create.
Awesome. This has been so fun. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
If you ask me, everyone should have a coach, especially you. I want to invite you to schedule a free discovery call with me. Go to splendidatl.com/contact. You'll see my calendar there. Book a call with me. You'll learn about my smart growth method where we can grow your business or organization sustainably with ease and massive impact. Think you've reached out to everyone in your network? Are you out of ideas to get noticed and get funded? I hear you. That's why I'm giving you a chance to steal my prospect list. Yes, you can generate leads for your nonprofit or impact-driven business. Grab my mini training and list delivered to your inbox instantly. Go to splendidcourses.com/prospect.